And welcome to another Mark Bishop show. You know, there's not a day that goes by now that we don't hear about the potential of another pandemic just around the corner, or COVID-3 is perhaps just around the corner. So I'm not impressed with diseased monkeys being imported into the U.S. laboratories. Maybe should you be? And this is how the next pandemic begins, or is it? So Dr. Lisa Jones-Engel, she's a senior science advisor on primate experimentation for people for the ethical treatment of animals, our good friends at PETA. And I have her for this interview to discuss a campaign to end dangerous international wildlife trafficking. It's a horrible thing, this chain. Welcome, Dr. Jones-Engel.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me.
You're most welcome. Well, so far during the COVID-19 pandemic, nearly 100,000 monkeys, I believe, from Asia, Africa, and South America have been bred on squatted farms or snatched from their homes in the wild, shoved into cargo holds and flown to the U.S. What happens to those that survive?
You know, this monkey importation industry, it's greedy. It is unspeakably cruel and violent and deadly. And it actually has U.S. companies are allegedly engaging in illegal activities and really recklessly exposing the U.S. public to zoonotic disease risks. And all while feeding the experimental labs in the U.S., whose experiments on these diseased and stressed monkeys kept in these tiny cages have consistently failed to produce any meaningful improvements in human health. Here's the thing, the primate experiment industry in the U.S., funded by taxpayer dollars, you're right, it's part of this global wildlife trade in endangered species. Think about that. The U.S. is the #1 importer of macaques for primate experimentation. And recently, global authorities, the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, have actually elevated this species of macaque, the long-tailed macaque, to endangered, citing specifically their extraction from the wild for experimentation as the leading cause to basically their numbers plummeting in the wild.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, the disease risk posed by the international monkey trade is so well known that the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, they banned the importation of primates as pets back in 1975. And yet, I mean, you know, given its disease threat, the failure of invasive and traumatic experiments on animals, you're now calling on the National Institutes of Health, the NIH and the CDC, to shut down the monkey abduction pipeline and stop rolling out the red carpet, so to speak, for the next pandemic. Why are experimenters using endangered species? Tell me why.
You know, why are they using any non-human animals as surrogates for humans? I mean, it is a recipe for disaster. And particularly, as you said, you know, the NIH, which is funded by our tax dollars, they know that the reliance on these non-human animal models slows and frequently misleads the scientific process. But, you know, these experimenters, there's a thirst for more and more monkeys, and that is what's fueling this very lucrative trade. Monkeys are money. And again, as I mentioned, the U.S. is the #1 importer of these animals. And so the industry, they want monkeys who are small, who are cheap, who are easy to handle, who are readily available, and they want hundreds of thousands of them. And they want monkeys that they thought no one was paying attention to.
Yeah.
But that's
Tens
no longer the case.
Tens of thousands of them, right? It's disgusting.
Well,
Tens of thousands imported, you know, every year to the U.S. I mean, it sounds like it's a cover-up for a business, doesn't it?
Well, it's, you know, you said something a moment ago that in 1975, the CDC closed the door on the importation of primates as pets. And again, they cited the public health risks to humans, but they left that door wide open for primate experimentation. And since 1975, more than 1 million monkeys have come into this country, and they've come in carrying the deadly Ebola-like viruses, tuberculosis, deadly diarrheal viruses, yellow fever, malaria, herpes B, and even during our very own pandemic, over the past 3 years, you're right, 100,000 monkeys came in. And these monkeys did not come in healthy, and they didn't leave the CDC required quarantine facility healthy either, because the publications are coming out in the scientific community saying that whether it's weeks or months or years later, animals who were supposed to have been observed and tested and certified as clean and healthy during this required quarantine period, these animals are showing up with these deadly pathogens in other facilities.
I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous. It's hard to understand how a government can allow this to happen. Right after all we've been through in the country over the last 2 years and longer, everything it does to us, industry, our livelihoods, our health, children, schools, shuts down everything, and yet this is an open door policy. Come on in, bring whatever disease you've got. We'd love to have you.
No, exactly, because it's part of this big lie, which the industry has said that, they actually justify inducing these extreme harms to the animals, to themselves, to the environment. I mean, as a brief side, think about what it means to take 1 million monkeys out of an environment.
It's unbelievable, yeah.
That whole ecosystem, that whole web is just you're tugging on one thread right there, and the consequences for those folks, for the farmers, the villagers in Asia will be, and we're already seeing, are profound by basically emptying the forest of these monkeys. But you're right, this is money. This is a $1 billion industry. People are making money off of the backs of these animals. And I have a little ray of hope. I don't know if you saw the recent Department of Justice indictments surrounding this industry.
That was a win. Mm-hmm.
You're right.
Well,
that was
what
a
are you
win.
going to do then? What are you going to do about this one, Doctor? I mean, what can you physically do? Do you want 1,000 people at the front steps of, NIH or what? What can you actually do that is going to be heard?
It's about, this industry has always counted on operating in secrecy. And, both the companies who are grabbing up these monkeys, as well as the end users, because, they are taking those monkeys from the forest and bringing them to the U.S. so they can then sell them for $30,000 a piece to experimenters in the National Institutes of Health or experimenters in the National Primate Research Centers. And those end users have not yet been forced to reckon with or be held accountable for the devastation that they're causing to the environment, to the public health threats, to what they've done to an entire species of primate. So I invite your listeners, go to PETA.org /stop monkey imports. Take a look at the information. We have been working nonstop on kind of compiling all this information. Take a look at some of the videos, and I warn your listeners, these videos are tough to see, but this is the reality. In a couple of clicks, let the CDC, send an email to the CDC asking them to shut down this door on the monkey abduction pipeline. The CDC has the authority to do this. They can, in the same way they did in '75, shut the door on pet monkeys. They can shut the door on all non-human primates being brought into this country.
Yeah, well, January 6th, imagine that for the good of humankind, storming the damn CDC and so on. That'd be much better, wouldn't it? 90% of experiments on animals fail to lead to treatments for humans, and more than 95% of new pharmaceutical drugs that test safe, effective in animals, they fail in human clinical trials. And they still continue, don't they, to use the excuse, but we need to do it. We need to do it. When in this case, as you've made it very clear, it's a business. It's a big money business, and that's all it is. Greed, greed, greed. Folks, www.PETA.org / and that again, please, Doctor, about the monkeys.
Stop monkey imports, all one word.
Stop monkey imports. So just getting that down, get marked. Wait, I get a pen. All right. www.PETA.org / stop monkey business.
Stop monkey imports. Absolutely.
Exactly. And you've got to stop the monkey imports, folks, because this is ridiculous. I've got some friends went down yesterday again with COVID, and we've got this business going on. Well, Doctor, look, all the best. You do a fantastic job. Thank you so much for coming on the show, and we wish you well.
Thank you very much for having me. Take care.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.